I'm Rebecca Hartley, and this is my final project for Professor Rink's Humanities 1020. Okay, so for my presentation and my piece, I picked Henry Matisse as my artist. I was really inspired by his work, and I really believe that his mindset behind painting is quite amazing, and I think it's something that's kind of missing in modern art. But he was born December 31st, 1869, and he died November 3rd, 1954. His mediums included paintings, sculptures, printmaking. He also did some drawing that was pretty popular, but his painting he's definitely known for more in the art world. And if you did know Henry Matisse, you would probably know one of his most famous paintings. So yeah, so his painting that I chose to kind of recreate, get inspiration from, is called The Goldfish. It was finished in 1911. It's post-impressionist style. However, Henry Matisse was a big proponent of the Fauvist movement, which is kind of like a movement that it brought back color into paintings, and they placed color a lot where it shouldn't have been, but they made sure to make it look like it all fit together. It's kind of like that one painting where it's like a cat and the cat's blue and the background's red, but it still looks like a cat. It's still realistic. They just used what they felt like they should have used instead of realistic paintings, and I really liked that, so that's why I picked the goldfish, because it's kind of has elements of that style, and I wanted to incorporate that into my painting, but his is more of a post-impressionist style, so I kind of changed a little bit of it just so it wasn't like the same art piece that I was trying to copy. So yeah. Okay, so when I planned my piece, I actually wanted to draw it on my iPad first because I'm pretty familiar with digital art, so I did that, and since my medium that I picked was watercolor, I wanted to use a watercolor brush on digital art, but it honestly did not look that realistic, so my painting looks pretty different from what the original one that I planned, but I think that makes the painting better in the end. So then I gathered the correct materials. I went to an art store, got my paint, got my brushes, just asked what they recommended, and I actually got watercolor that was in a tube, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I started a rough draft on my iPad, how to set it up, and then I set up my materials. Here are my materials, and then I got to painting. So I have watercolor paper, watercolor set like shown in the top. I have the brushes, some water, obviously for the watercolor, a pencil to sketch it out first, and then permanent black marker, which I wanted to use that on top of the painting to make it all come together, especially because you can see like the pencil through the paint. And then I also had paper towels because I didn't think I would need those. It's very important when you're doing watercolor. If you have too much of color on a brush and you put it on the paper, it will spread quickly. So you have to dab it off. So I was very unexperienced in that, but I ended up adding that to my materials list later. Here's me painting my little painting. So I started with drawing it out in the pencil, which you can see in the left. And then I started with the kind of like the focus of the painting first and the flowers in the top. And then I painted the background and kind of like added in other colors that I had on my iPad. However, it was quite frustrating because watercolor is a little bit hard to keep in one place. You have to be very careful. So a lot of my painting ended up looking quite like it flew, like flowing together, which I kind of like actually. And then this is my final project. I added the black marker on top. There's colors that I enjoy. I titled the work Contemplation because I wanted a simple one-word kind of title, and I was inspired by Henry Matisse's view of goldfish. Like, he was very inspired by how people who had never had goldfish before, like exports and imports were becoming extremely popular, and goldfish got imported to the one country that he was actually studying in, and he loved seeing people's view of goldfish and see them contemplate it. And he actually said multiple times that he would watch people and they would just stare at goldfish for like hours on end when they had nothing else to do, and I thought that was quite funny, and honestly I liked the idea of it, so that's where I took inspiration from. Yeah. And then here's my side by side. So obviously it's quite different, and I changed a lot of the colors, but I still kept that general theme. I just turned it into a more, I think, modern piece with like the pattern of the flowers on the top and then the cool colors of the splotches on the bottom. And I did splotches and the flowers in different tones. So I did obviously cool tones around the fishbowl, which I thought would fit well. And I kind of wanted to look like bubbles a little bit. And then I have the flowers up top just to like mimic it, and I have color on the top of the bowl just to show, like, if you saw the wallpaper of the flowers, it would be like in the bowl. So I thought that would be cool, like he did with his fish. The social angle that I picked for mine was Body and Mind, and Henry Matisse's was also Body and Mind. Like I talked about earlier, the goldfish were a huge state of inspiration for him. He loved how people looked at goldfish, and he loved how people were inspired by kind of like modern things like imports and exports, and I really like that idea. And I was inspired by, like, it reminded me of my childhood, so I thought that it would be good to recreate that. But yeah, and then the struggles that I had, unfamiliarity with watercolor paints. I did not know how hard these were to use. I've used like kid ones before, like when I was younger, but I never tried to paint anything like the one that Henry Matisse painted. And I don't like that the pencil can be seen through the color, because it kind of, I was already going to put black marker anyway, but it kind of threw me off because I would try to paint something and then I could still see the pencil underneath, and it just looked weird. And the inconsistency of color was another problem that I didn't realize. Like, you might paint with too much water the one time and then too little water the next time, so you end up having to wipe it off. So it actually took me quite a long time to paint. I think it took me about like 6 days because I had to stop and start just to wait for things to dry so they didn't blend together. And what I learned is that watercolor is harder to make more realistic than like an oil painting or pastel or something like that. But I did like painting by feeling, because that's how Henry Matisse painted a lot of his stuff. He liked to paint by what he felt rather than what he saw. So that's why it's still realistic, but it has his own twinge of like what he thought it should be. And I really was inspired by that, and I wanted my painting to be something that I liked and something that I liked looking at, and I think I achieved that. I really liked the painting, and I like how I added modern elements to it, even though I kept Henry Matisse's kind of general ideas behind it. And then here's my references page. Just two of the little things that I already knew quite a lot about him, because he is one of my favorite painters, but the goldfish is one of my favorite paintings. So yeah, thank you for watching.